Hello everybody out there, and welcome to another episode of the Talk That Talk Show with me, Barry Holmes. And we are here for episode 227 of the episodes of Talk That Talk Show. And I have to say that, last week, it was one of the most rewarding episodes that I was able to record. I think that, having Brian on as a guest, it was definitely one of the most enjoyable conversations that I had because, it was just so organic. And the fact of the matter is, when you haven't seen someone in over a decade, catching up was just like we had left off, in high school. So, if you did not get a chance to, I think you should definitely check out last week's episode with Brian Spawn, titled Reconnect. And I think one of the best things that I truly do enjoy about this podcast is the fact of being a bridge, being able to connect so many people together just off of one little podcast, right? And I think like one of the best things about that was that Brian was super proud to come here on the show. I think that sometimes people, when they come on podcasts, they may not take it as serious, but he took his nervousness and ran with it, man. And I think that for him to be able to also accomplish a goal for himself and get over a little bit of a fear of public speaking, I think it just speaks to Brian's confidence and just how much of an enjoyable episode that it was. The fact that he, hit me up. My dad asked had I had talked to Brian prior to or after the episode had aired, and I told him that one of the most enjoyable conversations that I had was that, Brian told me that he was able to talk with his high school bowling coach and tell her to listen into the show. And he sent me the screenshots between, their messages together, and for her to validate his story that he told on the show, and also to speak in such high regards of him in the way that he spoke on the show. It just speaks to, the ability and what this podcast represents. It's not just coming out on a show a night and just filling in time. For me, I'm trying to truly give people an honest look into what's going on in my life and some of the people that have some sort of influences on my life, what they're doing. And, again, to be able to be that bridge, to be able to, make something meaningful that Brian can say that he went back over and listened to multiple times, that's something that he'll have for the rest of his life and something he can share with his kids when they grow up. So, again, for us to be able to sacrifice that time to make that happen, and then for him to, pretty much tell me about just how appreciative he was of the opportunity, it just validated everything that this podcast stands for. So, I just wanted to give, once again, a big time shout out to Brian for coming on the show last week and hopefully inspiring other people to get over their fears. Maybe if you have public speaking, if you're nervous, you want to come on the show and you support it, but maybe you're a little bit nervous. Maybe you can look at, the way Brian came on the show and hopefully get a little bit of confidence so that you can maybe come here on the show. So, once again, like I said, big shout out to him, and I'm really excited to come here to you guys on a Friday night. One of the things that we decided to do, and originally we had recorded on Fridays, but with the NFL season coming to a close, we switched to our Sunday programming, and now we're getting a chance to come back to where we were at on Friday nights. And even though it does feel a little bit different, it's not like a Sunday night for us. It still feels good to come out here and do what I love to do, and that's podcast, and that's talk to you all and show you guys a little bit about what's going on with me. And if you do know me, you know that one of the most difficult things that I've had to deal with in the past 3 weeks is, I had a little hand injury that's prevented me from actually starting my bowling season. And, unfortunately, I've had to rest these last 3 weeks, but I think that where a lot of times people mess up, or even in professional sports as well too, sometimes when people have injuries, they don't take the time to heal. And this can go even beyond just sports and just in general when you talk about emotional and people that have traumatic experiences happen. I feel like, a lot of times we as people don't give ourselves a chance to fully heal. And when you don't do that, you're constantly dealing with that thing that made you upset, or the thing that's giving you pain. And for me, I knew that if I wanted to come and have a successful season and continue on the success that I had during the summer, I knew that even though it was hard and something I didn't want to do, I had to take that time off. And I think that in taking those 3 weeks off, I've gotten a really good chance to observe things from the outside looking in. And I think that in years past, and I've said this before to my brother and a couple times to other people, when I started out bowling, I really just bowled with people that wanted to bowl with me. And I didn't really have a chance to, carve my way and pick and choose the people that I wanted to bowl with. And I feel like this year, this season, each team that was put together, I had the chance to put it together and feel like that is a winning lineup. And I think that in years past, where we've maybe had certain teammates that weren't the best and that didn't take the time to get better, we had to hold that slack. And when you continue to have to hold that weight, it becomes a lot harder for you to keep that team cohesion and to have that success. So, what I was able to see from the teams that I've on in my absence, I've seen that each team that I'm on has, fight and a desire to win. It's not about just coming out there and having a couple beers. I feel like the people that I am on and the teams that I'm on, they motivate me because we have a really good, chance to do big things. And, I think that was all of the more reason why I needed to sit out these first 3 weeks, so that I could truly give myself a chance to be 100% healthy and to make sure that when I did return, that I wouldn't be a detriment to the team. So Saturday, tomorrow and Sunday, I'm planning on getting some practice on the lane so that I don't come back cold. So I'm really excited to, get that time back and to rejoin my teammates in the pursuit of first place. I think one of the toughest things that our team had to endure this season, early on in this young season, is that we were coming into Majestic in first place in one of the toughest leagues that we're in. And we got swept. We got swept by the league champions last year, and I think it was tough because we had such success, and we were upset about losing. But in a way, not that I was excited, but I truly started to get the wheels turning in my mind because I was thinking about the possibilities of trying to get back and what that comeback is going to look like. And sometimes when you're on top, not to say that we were complacent, but when you're on top, it's a lot harder to stay on top. And we had a situation where the better team won on Thursday, and I think that after leaving the alley, I think everyone on our team truly felt that loss and felt the hunger inside of them to say that, we went from first place to 14th place in one night. And, it can happen to anybody. And it's just a matter of, do we continue to fall? Do we fold? Or do we, stand together and fight and try and earn that rematch? So I think that, in talking with TK and talking to some of our other top teammates, we're excited to get out there and, we proved to ourselves that we can compete with anybody, even with a not even a full lineup, with me not being out there. We had a sub. So, I'm just, again, excited to come out here, come back. The hand is feeling well. It was funny because my dad was saying that, when I was going to each alley, it just seemed like everybody was checking in on the injury report. How's the hand feeling, Barry? What's going on? When are you going to be back? And it just felt like I was giving the constant update. And it just felt good to have people that truly cared and wanted to see me out there. And I think that, one of the things, Steve Sakis, big shout out to him, when his team swept us on Thursday, he said to me, he's like, just really wish, you could have been out there to suit up against us, man. And it's just that level of respect and that level of competitiveness that people want you out there and they want to beat you. I respect the hell out of that. And, it's the whole reason why we want to bowl. It's the whole reason why you want to have competition, that you want to succeed. Because, part of why when you get to pop that champagne and why you feel good on top is because of all the mud that you had to drive yourself through to clean yourself off. So, we have a very good season ahead of us, and I'm super excited about that. Now, we're talking about our season just coming to start and how we're excited about that. On the flip side, we have somebody named Shohei Ohtani who is not excited because his season has ended and he's going to need elbow surgery. And I think one of the toughest things about this is that now with him needing this surgery, we have to now worry about, will he still be just as effective as he was prior to the injury? And we've already seen that his trajectory as far as coming back is a little bit different. Now, given the success of the surgery and all goes well, he will only be slated to hit in 2024. And if everything goes well there, he will then be slated to try and return to pitching in 2025. Now, my question, and I think the question that a lot of people have out here, is that do we think that the injury to Shohei Ohtani will affect his market value? And I think that you have to say that, yeah, it will. Because one of the leading things that people or, reporters and people that deal with contracts, one of the biggest things that they said is that when Shohei Ohtani is going to potentially meet his next team, the market value and the money that this man will be requesting will be for the combination of two players, because he's an elite Cy Young caliber pitcher and, a Silver Slugger potential candidate every year as, a hitter. So I think that, we really have to monitor, what happens during this summer, because we already know that Shohei Ohtani cleared out his locker. He does not have any of his belongings in the clubhouse from what reports have said. And, it's a business at the end of the day. And what I will never understand is how the Angels could not have success or go to the playoffs having two of the most elite players in the game. And unfortunately, maybe it is the injuries that have derailed them, because, Mike Trout, he still hasn't come back. He's been out for months. And now you lose Shohei Ohtani, who probably won't come back. It is a sad time to be a Halos fan, because, I promise you, when he cleared out his locker, you knew it wasn't good news, and you knew Shohei was not probably going to come back to the Angels. So, in my opinion, I do not think that the elbow injury should stop teams from wanting to pay this guy, because, I think that in today's society, we're starting to throw the term generational talent out a little loosely. But I think that term does apply here to Shohei Ohtani, because, again, we haven't seen anything like it with him. And some could say Babe Ruth, but we were still all, still within our father and our, father's balls at that moment. We couldn't have seen, Babe Ruth. I don't even think my dad was alive at the time to watch this guy. So,
No.
For those people that say that there's comparable, there hasn't really been anyone as comparable to Shohei Ohtani in the dominance that he's had. So, hoping to see that he does get the money. I know people were saying that he could get upwards of $700 million. I do think that injury kind of brings that number down a little bit, but don't be surprised if you see Shohei Ohtani signing a deal for about $500 million. And if you ask me, the inside track, I think he's going to be going to the Boston Red Sox. And on one flip side, how we're talking about Shohei Ohtani potentially leaving, or more than likely leaving. If you remember last week, one of the episodes that we had talked, one of the topics that we talked about on the episode was our, distaste and how we did not like that Pete Alonso was the topic of trade discussions, and how people were having serious conversations in New York front office about potentially moving Pete. And what we found out in another week of information is that the Milwaukee Brewers did call in to the New York Mets asking to potentially buy out Pete Alonso's contract. And what we did hear finally from New York management is that Pete Alonso is a priority. They are trying to keep him. And I think the big thing that will prevent them from potentially signing Pete Alonso to a long-term deal is that the two sides cannot come to terms with how much years Pete Alonso should get. And what we've seen is, these contracts where, franchises are locked in for 8 to 10 years, these contracts never have seemed to truly pan out. Have you heard of Giancarlo Stanton before? But what I will say is this. I think that Pete Alonso is so much of a clubhouse guy and so much of a seller in the Mets Citi Field ballpark, and somebody that will bring people into the stands. And in a report, Tommy Pham has said that the position players that he played with in the New York Mets were some of the least hardworking people in all of baseball. But he did single out the hardworking efforts of Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, and one other person, Pete Alonso. So Pete Alonso is somebody that works hard. He has the respect of people within the clubhouse, which is very difficult to do. And he is someone that has that pop in the bat that you just cannot teach. So I am happy to finally say that if management is truly going to take their chance to keep him in New York, it's about fucking time. All right? Now, when we talk later, we have to also mention about the WNBA playoffs, guys. I had the chance of going with Doc to a playoff game. I think it was last week, and it was some of the best energy that you could imagine, man. The WNBA atmosphere is something that you have to experience for yourself, and it's definitely something that I want to do if they can advance past the next round. And we have to really break down these matchups here in the WNBA semifinals. And what we have here is the New York Liberty going up against the Connecticut Sun. And, we have to respect what the Connecticut Sun do. They're a very well-defended team. They really hang their hat on defense. It starts with Alyssa Thomas. And then, you have DeWanna Bonner who's doing her thing as well. And, those two, when they're on, it's like a trickle-down effect for the team. But the problem is, in my opinion, the Connecticut Sun are going to have a very difficult time trying to keep up with the New York Liberty offense. Because even though they're a good defensive team, they just lack too many people outside of DeWanna Bonner that can just go out there and get a bucket on their own. I think Heidemann, their point guard, she's pretty good too, but she's not an elite scorer in the sense that you need with the New York Liberty. The New York Liberty have about 5 or 6 women on that roster that could potentially drop 15 to 20 points. And they've shown by the massive amounts of points that they've scored in the last 2 months, right? So when it comes down to it, as much as I may not want to admit it, this looks like a quick series for me with the New York Liberty. I would not be surprised to see the New York Liberty sweep the Sun because we have not seen the Sun beat them all year, right? So, again, I love the Liberty here. I think that the team that they have, led by MVP Breanna Stewart, also having the likes of Sabrina Ionescu, who is a flamethrower, absolute flamethrower. Then when you have Fantasia Laney, who's out there getting into the basket, doing what she does, and it's just a trickle down. We have Courtney Van Sloot. She's out here dishing and swishing. John Claude Jones really securing up that inside. If she doesn't get the rebound and make 2 clutch free throws, we may be talking about it game 3 with the New York Liberty and the Washington Mystics, So, I think the New York Liberty are a deep team, and they're a dangerous team. And I think that the Connecticut Sun are just in the way right now. So I think that's going to be a sweep. And the series that a lot of people think should be a sweep, I just don't see it, man. The Las Vegas Aces, they rolled through their first round matchup, absolutely smoked them, And I think that they have the star power. They have the people that can score the rock, and they have a well-coached team with Becky Hammond as the head coach. They've won it last year. They're obviously the team to beat. But I'm going to tell you, this series is not going to be a sweep because the Dallas Wings have what a lot of teams do not have besides the Liberty against the Aces. And that's confidence. The Wings have beaten the Aces twice this year. And they have the star power in Arika Gumbawale. They have the star power in Natasha Howard. They have it with Satu Sabali. These women can score, and they can score at a high level. And I think that these games between the Aces and the Wings are going to be shootouts. And in those shootouts, you might get hit a couple times. And I think that's why the Las Vegas Aces, even though they will advance to play the Liberty, in my opinion, I just see it being a lot more difficult for them to sweep the Wings because they already have the confidence in beating the Aces before. And Arika, we talk about the same thing with, what's her name, Sabrina being a flamethrower. That woman can score the ball at so many different levels. And, I think that that's going to make for an exciting series. So keep it out there. If you want to do a futures bet, I would say bet on a New York Liberty sweep of the Connecticut Sun. And then also, if you want to, I would say that the Aces, I think it'll go 5. I think it's going to be Aces, and they're going to win in a 5-game series because, it seems like the Aces had too much of a cakewalk going up against the Chicago Sky, and it didn't really seem too tested, And I think that the Dallas Wings are a tremendous gap between the Chicago Sky, and that could make for a dangerous matchup for them. But moving away from the WNBA, I think we got to talk a little bit about the NFL. And these first 3 weeks have been crazy. My fantasy football team is doing pretty well. We're in first place in one league and in a playoff spot in another. But a lot of people specifically told me that I was a little crazy by not taking Justin Jefferson at the number 1 pick. I had the confidence in my boy Christian McCaffrey. And what that's proven to me has been an easy 20 to 25 points every single week. And I think that that's been like my biggest takeaway in these first couple weeks of the NFL season is just how good Christian McCaffrey is when he's healthy. And I think that because we saw him go to a different team in the 49ers later in the season, now with him having a full understanding of the offense and having a full training camp with Brock Purdy and the rest of the offense and everybody being healthy on that 49ers sideline, I just think that it's a dangerous offense that you just cannot stop. And with Christian McCaffrey, leading that rushing train, it's going to be very, very difficult to stop. And one of the things that I think that we do have to talk about here, besides the success of Christian McCaffrey, is the fact that we only have 5 undefeated teams left. And I don't think that the teams that we thought would be undefeated are one of the 5 remaining. And I have to say that it's not the Chiefs. The Chiefs are not on that list. But did you think that the Atlanta Falcons would be an undefeated team? I think that their team proves that youth can just infuse your team. The Atlanta Falcons have a guy named Bijan Robinson who is an absolute dog. He is a dog. You know, the amount of ankles that he's broken and really has anchored this Atlanta offense and has given someone in Desmond Ridder, who's making his first year as the starter of the Falcons, he's made his job a lot easier so that you can give this guy, Bijan Robinson, this workhorse, over 20, 25 touches, and you're winning that field position battle so that you can be in more games. So, you know, it's going to be a tough division, especially where we see that the Saints are starting to, you know, kind of catch their stride a little bit, especially after a big-time win last week. But I really do like what I've seen from the Atlanta Falcons, and I think that a lot of people that are sleeping on them should start waking up. And then we already mentioned this team, San Francisco. They're a tough bunch. You know, I think that with Brock Purdy, you know, only gaining more and more confidence, it just bleeds well for this team. And, you know, with Christian McCaffrey running the way he is, to me, they're the team to beat in the NFC. And it's just going to be difficult to stop them. I think that our next team, who we have someone who commented here about the injury update, is the Dallas Cowboys. And unfortunately, Trayvon Diggs was lost to an ACL injury at the beginning of practice. Yes, he was hurt in practice. And, you know, that's very disheartening for him, I'm sure for the whole Cowboys organization, because that guy was an absolute monster at cornerback. Whether he's forcing fumbles, whether he's deflecting passes, or he's intercepting passes, Trayvon Diggs anchored down that secondary. And now, you know, other guys are going to be looked to step up. Is this defense going to be as solid on the back end without Trayvon Diggs for this season? I don't think that it stops Dallas from being a huge contender in the NFC, but I think that it does put them a notch under the San Francisco 49ers at this moment. And then a team who I think might be the weakest 2-0 team right now, the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 2-0. They have Lamar Jackson back, but Action Jackson just hasn't looked like his MVP caliber self, right? You see this team, and they've lost, I think it was J.K. Dobbins to an injury, season-ending injury. The injury bug has hit Baltimore, and I think that they're a team that just has so many questionables, you know? They've shown that they can win, right? And they've won some difficult games. But I think that it's going to be hard for the Baltimore Ravens to sustain the success and the pace that they're on right now, just off the sheer fact that they're not 100% healthy. In this game, if you don't have a healthy squad week in and week out, you're at a huge disadvantage. And, you know, we know that the Ravens are a run-first team. And when you see that the top guy that they have is injured on that rushing attack, it's just difficult, man. And I think Lamar Jackson excels at being put in the right situations. And I think that if they try to ask Lamar to do too much, you can see the Baltimore Ravens fall a little bit lower and maybe not make the playoffs as one of the 2-0 teams. But the last 2-0 team that I'm not surprised about, who is very, very dangerous, is the Miami Dolphins. Everybody thought that Tyreek Hill was crazy when he said he couldn't wait to have Tua throw to him instead of Patty Mahomes. And what does Tyreek do? He has a career-setting year. And then in his first game, has over 200 yards, right? Now, I know he didn't maybe have as much yards as maybe he wanted to have in his second game, but still scored a touchdown, right? The Miami Dolphins with Raheem Mostert, with Tua getting more and more confident week in and week out, with the defense that they have, Miami is going to be a problem. They're going to be a team that I promise you, nobody's going to want to play in the playoffs if it comes down to that time. I think that they're a team that has so much promise and has not hit their max potential yet. The Dolphins are going to be a force to reckon with. And if you ask me, out of all these teams, out of all the five, who I think is the best, I think, again, you got to go with San Fran. I think next it goes Dallas, who's maybe the second best undefeated team. And then from there, I think Miami, you got to slide them as the third best undefeated team. And then between them, between Atlanta and Baltimore, I got to go with Atlanta because, again, with that rushing attack that they have, with Desmond Ridder and what they've been able to accomplish, I see big things for this team, man. And I think that NFL has been exciting. The injuries have been shitty, but what we saw was with Nick Chubb injuring himself on a grass field. I think the conversation, the debate between grass and turf, I think it's just an overall conversation of when you decide to play the NFL, or if you decide to play a contact sport like football, you have a massive amount of possibility to hurt yourself. And it can be detrimental for the rest of your life. I mean, you look like someone like Ryan Shazier, who is an ultimate hitter on defense for Pittsburgh, and he can't walk the same ever again. We ask these guys, why are they making such money like the way that they are? And then you see someone like Nick Chubb get his knee completely blown in the opposite direction. So for all those football, and I actually asked the kid in high school, it was funny because I asked him, I was like, yo, if after you just saw Nick Chubb and you saw what happened to him, or you see somebody that gets hurt on the field, does that get you nervous, or does that make you scared a little bit when you go out there? And he simply replied, hell no. So I think that to play the game of football, you got to have that dog in you. It's not something. It's like boxing. You don't play boxing, right? If you want to play football, you are risking your life to go out there. I mean, look at Damar Hamlin. He almost died out there from cardiac arrest. Football is no joke. Not everybody can play football. And that's why I hope that, continuing on into this season, I know that's going to happen, but I would just like to see a little bit less injuries because we want to see those star players and those best players out there playing. And you hate to see a situation like the Giants, who have a Thursday night matchup, and they don't have Saquon Barkley out there, and now they can't score a fucking point. And now we have to endure that. I saw so many people that said, hey, I'm turning this game off. I can't watch this. This is unwatchable because of the level of that the drop-off is when you have a team that does not have their star caliber player. But in closing, I do want to thank Doc, because what we have been able to do is Monday through Thursday, every day this week, we were able to make it to the gym. And we have plans on hitting the gym after this podcast. So today would make 5 full days in a row that we've been to the gym. And I only say this to say this. So many times before, me and Doc made excuses about why we could not go to the gym. What was on our plate that was preventing us from doing the things that we wanted to do. And I'll even go to another level and say that, Doc has been, upset with herself about her not being able to finish her doctorate at the rate that she wanted to. But what I saw from her this week and what we've seen from ourselves is that we have set aside the time to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. So Doc said, hey, I have all these things going on. So what she did was she stayed after school an hour and worked on her doctorate. She set aside certain time to accomplish and to try and work on that doctorate and not prevent things from stopping her. We said, hey, if we want to go to the gym, we have to go after work. We can't keep pushing it back. And I think that what we've seen is our overall mental has been a lot better. And when you're going through something with someone together, it's very motivating, and you have someone to kind of push you over that hump where you may not want to go to the gym, and you have somebody that says, hey, no, we got to do this. We're on 4 days strong. Let's get it shaken, So, I just want to thank her for always supporting me, and, for us, together, motivating each other to accomplish our goals. And who knows, we're not going to be bodybuilders. We're not going to be Instagram models, but that's not why we're in the gym. We're in the gym to, get that intrinsic value, to keep our mental health up there, to keep our physical health the way we want it. I saw TK said it on the comments. He said health is wealth. And I think that when you prioritize that and when you make the time for that, you start to see a lot of other things start to align, and you start to see your thought process change. You start to see things start to become a little bit clearer for you. So, when you set aside some time, when you sacrifice, and when you put the time away to, get things done, it's very rewarding, and I promise you, it will pay off. I think one of the toughest things is for people when they don't get that instant gratification from hitting the gym, where they're like, oh man, I still look like how I looked before I started. You got to keep pushing, because, even like, for example, you look at a plant, and even though that plant might be like this, it might be this little plant, underneath, you see the roots are starting to go, and you see the roots are starting to spread, and you see that it will hold that plant up and keep it sturdy to where it can grow, right? So in that same regard, even though you may be this plant, right? You may be this little thing, and you may not see the process, but when you're building and you see those roots, and when you can finally stand tall and be like, yes, I accomplished that goal, that is the whole point of getting through things. That's the whole point of putting yourself through the failure, through the whatever trials and tribulations that took you to get to that point. That is what makes it that much more rewarding, when you can stand up because you've fully grown to your max potential. And that's why we don't stop here. I have not hit my max potential in the bowling game. I haven't hit the max potential in the podcasting game. Shit, I haven't hit my max potential in my life. But every single day that I take a breath, that I, think about what my next move is, I'm constantly trying to grind it out and find an answer to get, that stability, financial freedom, whatever you want to call it, that happiness, whatever that exists for me at that moment. I'm going to continue to try and work towards that, because if you're not out there grinding, if you're not out there working, then what are you doing? If you don't have any goals, if you're 30 plus and you don't have any idea what it is that you want to do or what it is that you're working toward, how many people out there are working, but they're not working towards anything? You're putting this work in, but you have nothing to show for it. So, again, it's so important to think, and so important to direct that movement and direct that effort that you're putting in, so that you can accomplish something. I mean, I look at someone like Bernard, who's tuned in here, who really put the time in to work on his craft and was then rewarded with shooting his first 300. And now getting that front 8, front 9 doesn't seem too hard for him, right? It's believable. I think that at first, when you first accomplish that goal, or when you first hit that notch, it seems like, shit, I reached a place that didn't seem reachable. It felt unreachable. But once you reach that spot, everything else just falls in line, man, and it just doesn't seem too hard. I mean, when we were doing the cardio yesterday, I even bumped it up a little bit faster, because I was like, damn, I can do this shit. This shit kind of nice now, So as you continue to build, and as you continue to hit those marks, those milestones, things are going to start to fall in place, and it's going to make sense. So don't get too frustrated if you don't get that instant gratification, because it just takes some time to let your roots spread, all right? So that's all I got for you tonight. This is the Talk That Talk Show. Every single week, we will be here to deliver you guys another episode of the Talk That Talk Show, and just try to get you to think outside of the box. You know, you can live your whole life living in this little box, this little, thing. But once you open up and you kind of expand your mind a little bit and think about things outside the box, then you start to see other things and other perspectives, and it just becomes a little bit easier, and you start to understand things a little bit better. So, I'm going to continue to keep my mind open. I'm going to continue to listen. I think that, the big thing for us moving forward into next week is, I'm just super excited to get back out there and, rejoin my teammates. There's a lot of good things that are on the horizon, and a lot of them stem from this show. I mean, having somebody like Jimmy Charles show up to our league in a Talk That Talk Show jersey and giving tips to everybody on our team. Again, that's something that's bigger than the podcast. That's something that you have a legend representing your brand in one of the biggest leagues at the alley. That's something that you can't put a price value on. That's something that you can't put a dollar value on. So, as I continue to have these great things happen, I'm just going to try and continue to put it in my mind and create these episodes so that I can enlighten you with the things that are going on in my life, and that can hopefully help you to get a little bit of success in your life as well too. So I love you all. Thank you so much. This is the Talk That Talk Show.
Talk That Talk.
And I will see you all next week.